Welcome everyone to today's Scaling with People podcast. I have Joy Meserve here. She is a business consultant, leadership trainer, and coach. After 2 decades of executive experience in scaling operations and developing leaders, she found Leading with Joy to help other executives develop leaders that foster high-performing and joyful workplace cultures, where it's a win-win for companies and their employees. Together, she and her clients create more leaders and workplaces that focus on building trust, authentic, collaborative, aligned, and accountable growth cultures where people are intrinsically motivated and achieve financial success on behalf of the business. Meserve leverages her experience as the former COO of ID Tech, where she spent 22 years scaling operations from startup to international expansion to a $200 million acquisition, delivering quality educational experiences to 50,000 students each year. Excited to have you here today, Joy.
Thank you. I'm so excited to be here and to talk to a fellow chief of mine.
Yes, absolutely. That's such a great resource to have. So tell me a little bit about, you go from being a COO of a very established business, and now you're starting your own. Tell me a little bit about how that has, in your mindset, been a challenge.
Yeah, I think I've learned so much when transitioning from corporate America to being a solopreneur around mindset. And I think that it's been a really interesting journey. It's been reflective. It's been something that I didn't expect. And I think that coming from corporate America and being that doer, being the person who was basically the delivery person, the integrator, operations, right? Always going, doing, responding to crises, solving problems, and sort of picking up pieces for people. It was going from that corporate hustle and then to absolute silence. And I think I mistakenly thought that the same motivators that I used in corporate America for on a day-to-day basis would still be the same. So I had this big plan, in 6 months I was going to be doing so well and, making plenty of income because I'm the breadwinner of my family. So there's definitely a lot of risk involved in what I'm doing. And no, the universe told me, yeah, Joy, remember that value you gave yourself in setting out to do this, which was patience? You need a little bit more. You got to take a little more time. And so I had to learn to rewire my brain because I was getting all that stimulus, the sort of like survival stimulus of fight or flight and urgent and important and all of that to just me. And what do I want to do? And there were no big, there was nobody sort of breathing down my neck. Not that my boss breathed down my neck, but there was no like theoretical anything, waiting for me to make a move, asking me to do something, to solve something. That all had to come from within. And so that rewiring was a process, and it took time to figure out, okay. And once I started using some of my old principles of, how we worked, which was creating a strategic plan, I'm like, Joy, why haven't you created a strategic plan for your own business? Like, duh. And once I started doing that, I started getting off onto a faster roll of things of, focused time, calendared time, and really trying to achieve my quarterly goals for myself.
Yeah, I love that. That's such a great epiphany you had of like, I do strategy for other companies, and why haven't I done that for myself? My own planning of what I want to get my business to be doing and where it's going to grow and where it's going to be at, and have that focus point, right? They say that writing down your goals will give you a higher percentage of actually making them.
Absolutely. And it's so silly to me that I spent, and I think I have to give myself grace again, because I was coming off a 22-year career. And I had, climbed from, I was the first regional manager hired on, and I had climbed all the way up to chief operating officer for the last 8 years that I was there, and it was always sort of in a leadership role and a shaping role of the company. And everybody said, you got to give yourself 6 months, Joy. You need to give yourself time off. And I was like, nah, I don't need 6 months off. Let's just roll. And so I think that part of that first 6 months for me was decompressing, was reflecting, was getting to know, like, who am I now? Was getting to understand, like, what do I want, and where is that zone of genius that I want to put forth. I had a lot of different ideas, and so I sort of went through various things along the way too of what I wanted to do, or where I could focus my time, because the paths are many, when that road and the fork in the road presents itself, you can go several directions. So it's definitely, I think, important to slow down and take that time. And in retrospect, I kind of wish I really had.
It's hard. Sometimes you have people that are in your corner telling you and giving you advice, and then you don't take it. And then you kind of like look back and go, why didn't I take that? Like even when you go to the doctor's office, right? They tell you, oh, you should be taking these vitamins or doing X, Y, Z. And it's like, you go to the doctors to make sure you stay healthy. Why are you not taking their advice? So one takeaway here, I hope listeners have here, is to definitely value the advice you're being given by your core people that are in your life. They're there for a reason. Mm-hmm. So tell me a little bit about leading with joy. So you had different variables that you were looking at, different paths that you could take. How did you decide on leading with joy?
Yeah, so I decided that I wanted to help companies develop cultures that were akin to where I came from. And so I came from and helped develop and form really cohesive culture. We had an award-winning culture streak, like, since we started applying for this award. And San Jose, it's an award for businesses, but we kept that going year after year after year. It was never broken. And so I knew I had something special, and I knew I sort of had a different way or a different approach to managing and leading folks. And so I really believe that, certainly the business needs to make, be profitable, right? That's how we keep going. That's how we afford our salaries and promotions for our people, and, reach more to do more good. But also where I wanted to make workplaces a place where people were enjoying themselves. I don't know if you know this, but we spend 1/3 of our lives at work.
Feels like it's a lot more than that sometimes,
doesn't it? It does, right? It feels like it's the majority of the day, but I think what they're counting on is, well, you probably don't work much before you're, 16, 17 years old. And then, we retire at 65-ish or so. But so let's take that out of the equation. We spend even more of our, really healthy work years at work. So why not make that a beautiful, fun, and fulfilling place? And so I founded Leading to Joy to bring more joy to businesses. And what I define as joy is tapping into your own intrinsic motivation, your own desire, our deep-seated desire to be fulfilled. And that fulfillment, if you can get fulfillment through work, and as leaders, if we can help our people get fulfillment through work, we can all be so much happier, because fulfillment is what brings us joy.
Yeah, I mean, it's the foundation of the 5 languages of love, right? I mean, you can take that into the business aspect and basically look at it as what gives you that fulfillment, what fills your bucket or your gas or tank, right? What gets you out of bed every morning to go to work besides the paycheck, right? Because the paycheck will keep you probably there, but not happy. So what is it that it satisfies you? I think that's such a great perspective. And I think a lot of managers do struggle with having that connection with employees and understanding what is a key area that you could help them have that fulfillment.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and certainly employees can advocate for themselves too. But I really believe in that leaders have to understand motivation. And once they understand motivation, they can bring about employee engagement. Once they bring about employee engagement, the company's thriving and the individual is thriving. And so that comes back to, we all want to become masters, right? We all want to head toward mastery. We all want some level of autonomy in our work, and we all want some sort of purpose. And that I wrap inside for leaders to understand, you want all three of those things, you need to give ownership over substantial projects and tasks so people feel seen, heard, and valued. So they feel like their contribution is making a difference, not just for them, but it's serving others. It's serving the company, it's serving other teams, it's serving clients. And that's where you get the purpose. You don't have to work at a place that's curing cancer, right? But if inside the workplace, you feel a sense of service to others, you're going to feel that purpose.
Absolutely. And you were talking earlier about accountability too. I think that's something that I've seen a lot of managers struggle with in today's world, especially post-COVID. What are some tips or tricks that you give to your managers and your clients on how to create that empowerment, but keeping accountability as part of that conversation?
Yeah, you'd be surprised. I advocate for trust and building trust. So once you build trust and there's a reciprocal trust back and forth, if I trust you and you trust me, all of a sudden you're going to want to ensure that your work gets done because you don't want to let me down, right? I've, invested in you and I've helped you gain these skills, gain mastery, and I've trusted you with larger projects, etc. Right? And now you're going to want to hold yourself accountable. So then again, it comes back to the intrinsic motivation. But I do think that there are some simple things. I know I managed remote teams for over 2 decades. So when I started at this company, when I was 23 years old, out of the gate, I was managing remote employees. And so it wasn't news to me when the pandemic hit. So I was very comfortable with that. But I will tell you, early on in my career, I struggled with trust. It was the thought going through, these were internals. These were things in my head I would be worried about, like, I wonder what they're doing right now with their time. I don't see them. So are they just folding laundry and watching TV? And I would be like, so as their manager, shouldn't I be worried about that? Isn't this supposed to keep me up at night? And what I came back to learn rather quickly was it wasn't about that. What it was about is results. Yeah. It's where you can see, I gave you this project, I gave you this deadline. Did they meet it? Great. Well, that's all I've asked them to do. So if that is check and check, we're good, right? And so I kind of stopped my sleepless nights on that. And I started actually giving more trust and more autonomy. And what that developed is a workforce that really wanted to be there and a workforce that was holding themselves accountable. So it comes back to not like the manager needs to be accountable for, it's self-accountability. And when you can drive that self-accountability, everything changes.
Yeah, I think that's so true. It's all about the production that's coming to you, right? What's the product that, or production or workload or whatever work product, I guess you could say, right?
Yeah.
And I think too, another way that I've done it is just continuing to push and give things that are a little bit harder, right? It's a growth opportunity for the individual. It's also for you to test to see, can they step up and do that? And whether or not you give them a little bit of nudge or help, or you kind of like just throw it at them and see if they swim, and or ask for help, right? So depending on the role, right, and the company culture, that's kind of some of the things I've done as well.
I love that, Gwen. And I think that what you said about it being just a little bit challenging, right? If we get, delegated tasks that are boring, like, it's going to feel like, they just don't want to do this little thing right now. I'm just being secretarial for them, or this is way too easy, right? So boring tasks, like, that's not what you delegate. You got to delegate the meaty stuff where they can sink their sink their teeth into it and hopefully, ideally, those projects that you're giving them play to their strengths in some way. Like, you've noticed, like, oh, you know what? I noticed that you edited this little thing really well. So let's give you a bigger content project to work on, something you can really get excited about. And what happens is while that person's working on that project, they access the flow state, right? All of a sudden, because it's a little bit challenging and they like doing it, it's those two things combined. It's why people spend 10,000 hours trying to become a master at being, a visual artist, a painter, or why they want to become an athlete, right? They're accessing, this is a little bit challenging, but I'm also good at it. And they're like, yeah. And again, flow state, fulfillment is joy, right? It's all linked.
Yep, 100%. And I think that sometimes managers get stuck in, well, if I delegate my work and I teach someone how to do it, I'm working myself out of a job. Or maybe the other individual that you're coaching to give up what they're doing to a junior person to help grow the junior person. Well, then they're actually feeling like, well, you're just asking me to work myself out of a job. And I think it's really important for managers to recognize that and to communicate. I'm trying to give you space to grow. Yeah. And in order to do that, I got to delegate these other things that are on your plate, or I'm delegating things on my plate so I can take on new things. And talking about giving space, I think it's really important to make sure you give space to your employees so that they can grow and they can learn and they can make some mistakes, obviously not to the detriment of the business horrifically, but we're all humans and we learn from mistakes too.
That's right.
Yeah,
absolutely. Oh, I think that's beautifully said. And I can see that fear there of like working out of your own, like working yourself out of your own job. But what I would say to that person is, because now you have time for higher and better use of your own time, right? Your own superpowers, your maybe strategic thinking, strategic planning. Now you have time for that and you're not mired down in the details over here. Someone else is taking care of that while you're checking in with them. You're making sure they have what they need. You're being a thought partner to them, but you were freed up for more. And the way that I grew up in the organization is exactly that. It was, I want to train, first of all, other people to do the role I was doing. So I started training other people how to be a successful regional manager. Then lo and behold, they became my team. And then I needed, as the company scaled and grew, then I needed some more leaders on that team. So then I grew one and, I had just a few direct reports instead of the whole team. And then I took on another department, and then I took on another department, and then I took on another department. And it's how you kind of grow in the organization, is by putting people under you that are doing well and growing and leading too.
Yeah, absolutely. And then circling back to those founders that are doing it all, right? And then they start to build their business and you need to start letting go and recognizing not only what your passion is and what you're skilled at, but what you're not. And what are the things that are bogging you down? What are the things that you as the founder, CEO should be focusing your time on? And all the other things you need to delegate outward, right? I think it's really hard and challenging, especially for those that have been in it and really built their business up, to finally start to let go of some of those things and to let go to those people who they've hand selected as part of, employee number 1, 2, and 3 after the founder is key to the culture and the business growth.
100%. Great points. Yeah, I totally agree with that. And I personally can't wait to go from solopreneur to entrepreneur. I can't wait to hire my first, employee and then, and from there and there. I mean, my vision is there, my vision is that I will have other corporate trainers on my team with specific skill sets, but also teaching the curriculum that I've developed, and bringing their own to the table. And then I know what's really popular for a lot of solopreneurs is hiring a virtual assistant. And I know that they can be very effective.
Yeah, I haven't taken the plunge there. Have you?
Not yet. So hopefully this podcast will get us some more business so that we can hire a virtual assistant.
There you go. I love it. Yeah. So you're talking about content and building content. What are some of the resources that you find have been inspiring during your journey?
In terms of creating content?
No, creating your own business.
Oh, resources and creating my own business. I have listened to various folks on LinkedIn. There's some really wonderful people out there doing a great service in educating, even for free, just via their LinkedIn posts. So I know Hala Taha. She talks a lot about building your brand and your presence on LinkedIn. There's quite a few of those leaders out there. If LinkedIn is where your target client hangs out. And then I would say I'm actually reading a book called Spin Selling, and it comes with an accompanying workbook because as an operations geared person, again, all about the execution and the doing, I didn't have any training or background in sales. I do like to think of sales as like we do it all the time, right? When I'm selling my kids on, going somewhere for the weekend or, selling them on starting some homework earlier rather than, taking a break now, just get it done, right? We're constantly selling. But I would say, so spin selling is great for larger transactions. So anyway, I've learned a lot from that book so far and diving in and it's all about asking questions, right? It's all about getting people to kind of come to the obvious answer that there is a need there. But I have talked to other folks who are in operations like me and solopreneurs, and it's hard for us because we want to just jump in and solve the problem. We're so used to that. And it is a bit of again, rewiring of the brain to slow down and ask questions. How about you?
Oh, that's a great question. I've actually just really leaned into my network and spoke to a few of my network friends who started their own business and how they did it, and learn. I'm someone who likes to learn from others and try not to make the same mistakes or learn from their mistakes. So I don't have any famous authors or people I follow as words of wisdom, but I think for me, it's really about leaning into your network and the people that are there to support you just as you support them. I think that's really key there.
Yeah.
So I know we were talking earlier before we started this call about partner leadership. What does that look like, and why is it key to a profitable business?
Yeah, a partner leadership means that you are the kind of leader who is not going to just delegate and be done with it, right? And wash your hands of it and say, okay, great, I have this person doing that. I'm done now. I can look over here. As much as I'm into delegation, I think there's a right way to do it. And you could also overdo it, right? So there's another delegation trap, which is the micromanagement trap, which is then, really overdoing it with almost doing it for somebody and then it's not, that person's not going to get that sense of ownership and autonomy there. So it's about saying, hey, I see you have this wonderful strength in X, Y, and Z. I noticed it. I observed it. So you're being a very observant leader, right? And saying, what do you think about taking this on? And as long as you have this buy-in from this person that they want to do this and they're excited about it, plays to their strength, they want to do it, then it's about coming to them with like, okay, great. So what's the plan? I will support you along the way. I'm here to remove obstacles. I'm here to check in with you. I'm here to ask questions. I'm here to be, a sounding board. And then the key piece for me is to get them in front of somebody in the company, whether or not they're going to have a chance to present what they've done in front of others. We want them to shine, right? We want them to feel that sort of positive reinforcement. It's a natural reinforcer when they can get up in front of the team and present like, I've done this whole thing, or maybe it's the CEO, or maybe it's the whole company. Or if you're in higher levels of leadership, let's get them presenting to the board of directors, right? So, and you can really, in that moment, you're growing that leader and you're partnering with them along the way. Once you've done that once, they've got that skill, check, good. Now, when you're looking for people who you might want to promote in the organization, you're like, who's taken on some leadership, right? This person's taken on some leadership. I saw it. It was fantastic. Because in that process of taking on ownership over someone, you know what they're going to have to do? They're going to have to go out and ask people across departments for their input. They're going to have to plan meetings. They're going to have to come up with weekly goals and benchmarks and milestones. They're going to be their own this is their little strategic plan, right? To get this done. How are they going to do it, right? You're there certainly for support, but you're not doing it for them.
I love that. That's such a elegant way of saying that. And it's so important to bring those types of people along and be foundational to your business and your business growth.
Mm-hmm.
Well, Joe, this has been a joyful call with you. Is there any other tips, tricks, tools that listeners can apply in their own organization or in their own management?
Sure. I mean, I think one of the things that I think is really important, whatever is version of understanding what kind of leader you are. So whichever quiz you want to take, if it's an Enneagram test, if it's the Myers-Briggs, I have a really simple 5-minute one on my website called the Leadership Compass. But I think it's really important that you understand what kind of leader you are, but also the pitfalls that come with it, right? Because we as leaders need to work on those things. So I think that is really important. And then you can also think through, once you know your own strengths and weaknesses, the very next question that's so automatic for managers and leaders is, well, what about my team? You start trying to go, right? You start going, I bet Carrie's a this, and I bet so-and-so's a that, right? And rather than wondering what they are, have them take the same quiz as well. And then you can figure out, okay, so when I'm working on, there's this big task at hand, who's going to be best for that? The person that loves the details. Who's going to be best for that? The person that's the innovator, the visionary. Who's going to be best for that? My empath, right? And so I think, and I'm not trying to singularly put us in all the lanes. Most of us are a blend of
Sure.
all of them. Yeah. But you can certainly play to people's strengths in that way as well.
Yeah. One of my favorite tools is actually predictive index, because they do not only individual assessments, but then you can put your employees together into a team and understand what the team dynamics are and where your team is very successful at and where the pitfalls are. Again, knowledge is power, and understanding, okay, if this comes to the team's plate, how is the team going to respond and react to this request or this situation or this change? So I'm a partner of predictive index. That's why I bring it up. But all of those assessments are really great tools as long as you're using them for more just knowledge base and not massive decision-making process.
Right. I 100% agree. It's a clue. It's a hint. It's not the end all be all.
Exactly. And you're so right. People are everything. Like there's a little bit of us, a little bit in everybody. So really kind of just taking it for what it's worth. So Joy, it's been a pleasure having you today. Thank you so much for your time.
Yes, it was a pleasure being here, Gwen. Thank you so much.